July 4th, 1963. As Clyde Kennard lay dying, the bearer of an immense burden, a victim of violent racism, his last words echoed through an eerily silent hospital room. "I'd be glad it happened, if only to show this country where racism finally leads. But the people aren't going to know it, are they?" Minutes later, he would be dead. It would take America 50 years to hear his story. He went to his grave carrying an enormous burden, the burden of taking a stand against segregation.
Clyde Kennard was early in openly attacking the rigid apartheid system in Mississippi as it relates to higher education, and he paid with it with his life.
Clyde Kennard's story is important. It's just not famous. His courageous life and chilling death led to not only the integration of the University of Southern Mississippi, but schools throughout the state. Born in Hattiesburg, Mississippi on June 20th, 1927, Clyde Kennard's childhood was marked by the familiar sting of Jim Crow and discrimination. In spite of the double standard of the South's separate but equal credo, Kennard sought a future founded upon hard work and education. At the age of 12, Kennard moved to Chicago to live with his sister, Sarah Tarpley, in order to pursue his education, which was limited at best in the South. With World War II raging, Kennard joined the Army.
Well, he had gone off to fight in the Korean War. He was in the Army, both at the tail end of World War II, and was a decorated war veteran, received the Bronze Star. He was a paratrooper.
The Army system of merit-based advancement provided a stark contrast to segregation, where merit meant nothing. Receiving an honorable discharge from the Army in the fall of 1952, Kennard turned his attention to acquiring a degree. He attended the University of Chicago and completed 3 years of schooling under the university's rigorous programs. With the death of his stepfather in June 1955, Kennard decided to return from Chicago to assist his mother. Kennard was drawn back by the compassion he held for others.
The humble, godly person. He worked in the community with the elders, teaching those who didn't get a good education. That was his thing, to try to get everybody an education.
The educational situation in the South was bleak. The promise of an education crumbled beneath the reality of secondhand books, broken desks, and underfunded programs, and appeared to be just another casualty in the power play of white supremacists. Kennard resisted the limitations of segregation and began a lifelong quest for achievement. The first strings of Kennard's movement against educational discrimination appeared in the simple form of a college application. Just a 15-minute drive from his farm, Mississippi Southern College appeared to provide everything Kennard would need to finish his degree. Yet Mississippi's rigid system of educational apartheid sought to destroy him. The college was for white students only. The nearest black institution, Tougaloo College, was miles away and lacked the programs he sought. Despite the violent fate that had been met by others who had protested in Mississippi, Kennard challenged the system. He was motivated not by an agitator's whim, but by the common human desire to better himself. When his application was brusquely rejected on December 2, 1958, Kennard refused to give up. His courage and moral dedication inspired other African Americans to challenge segregated education. His faith in the system was seen as a fault by critical observers and guided future attempts by James Meredith, whose famed integration of Ole Miss followed Kennard by 2 years. Meredith concluded,
"Well, let's talk about what he did wrong, in my view. He trusted the white supremacists."
Kennard's deeds attracted the enmity of the powerful and secretive Mississippi State Sovereignty Commission.
That was a state organization whose purpose was to maintain segregation, and the governor used that organization to obtain information.
Spearheaded by Chief Investigator Zach Van Landingham, the commission targeted Kennard as an integration agitator. Kennard's third attempt to integrate was made on September 14, 1959. He was rejected once again. Mississippi Southern College's president, W.D. McCain, aware of Kennard's persistent desire to enroll, arranged a meeting with him. On September 15, 1959, what should have been a meeting over paperwork turned into a miscarriage of justice. According to the recently declassified Sovereignty Commission records, after his meeting with President McCain, Kennard returned to his car to find 2 police officers who arrested him on the false charge of transporting moonshine.
Constables were literally waiting for him as he exited from the registrar's office and took him into custody and then claimed that they had found liquor in his car. Of course, the truth of the matter is that Kennard was a teetotaler. He didn't drink at all.
I'm saying he was not a drinker. So any whiskey was illegal, and it was an excellent way to frame someone. Excellent excuse to stop you.
The arrest and charges culminated in a $600 fine after a fiasco of a court case, where court dates were set without the knowledge of Kennard's lawyer, R.J. Brown, one of only 4 African-American lawyers in Mississippi. The commission, fearing a public campaign to expand integration, devised a more devious ploy to incriminate Kennard further, thereby sullying the positive regard he had earned in the community. On December 2, 1960, Kennard was framed as an accessory to the theft of $25 worth of chicken feed. Incarcerated and put on trial, his fate was placed in the hands of one Johnny Lee Roberts, Kennard's so-called accomplice. Roberts, in a move motivated by threats to his family, testified against Kennard, thereby sealing the outcome set out by the Sovereignty Commission. Roberts' false testimony and a deep-seated conspiracy by state officials, the courts, and the police ensured the innocent man would go to jail.
We do know one thing, and we do know that at the end of this process, Johnny Lee Roberts, who stole the chicken feed, was punished very lightly, if at all. And Clyde Kennard, who was found to be in the possession of chicken feed, amounting to maybe worth $20 or so, was given 8 years of hard labor at Parchman State Prison, which was known to be just an awful place to have to do time.
The remainder of Kennard's life was one filled with unspeakable physical pain and gross mistreatment. Kennard served his sentence at Parchman State Penitentiary, suffering for a crime he did not commit. 3 years into his sentence, he developed intestinal cancer and was admitted to a hospital in Jackson, Mississippi.
He was beginning to undergo treatment for this intestinal cancer in the hospital when James Meredith made his first attempt to enter Old Miss. Emotions became so supercharged that out of some strange vengeance motive, apparently Clyde Kennard was ordered out of the hospital and back onto the work gang, and they put him on the toughest work gang they have at Parchman, which is the sun up to sundown work gang.
He had been tortured in prison and denied medical care, food, and water as he neared death. A student movement, led by the Ladner sisters, convinced Governor Barnett to allow Kennard to be furloughed. Medgar Evers asked comedian and social activist Dick Gregory to assist the dying Kennard. Kennard was released to undergo treatment at the University of Chicago. Despite 8 hours of surgery, Clyde Kennard died on July 4, 1963. He was only 36. Within 2 years of his death, the outcry over the treatment of Clyde Kennard forced the University of Southern Mississippi to admit its first black students, Relani Branch and Gwendolyn Armstrong, each mentored by Kennard. While the torch of civil rights has passed into the hands of others, the story of Clyde Kennard has not been forgotten. 46 years after his wrongful incarceration, others have come forward to relieve Kennard of his burden. The work of Jerry Mitchell and Northwestern University law professor Stephen Drizzen have conclusively proven Kennard's factual innocence, and most importantly of all, have exposed the widespread conspiracy to frame Kennard in order to prevent integration. On May 17, 2006, in an unprecedented display of support from citizens across Mississippi, the very same circuit court where Kennard was convicted rescinded his sentence and formally expunged his name from the record. Under the guidance of former federal judge Charles Pickering, former governor of Mississippi William Winter, and Reuben Anderson, a former justice on the Mississippi State Supreme Court, Mississippi has courageously turned to face its demons and declared Kennard innocent.
So in that context, then, this is not simply a school case that turned ugly, but part of the larger struggle, of which Kennard fits very neatly because he was the mentor to people like the Ladner sisters, who went on to be civil rights activists, and because his case became a rallying cry, not only in Mississippi, but nationally.
It is vital to the integrity of our legal system that official action be taken now, late though it is, to undo that injustice.
Clyde Kennard lived in faith, died in hope, and longed to see others follow his example. He carried the burden for authoring Lucy, Otis Richardson, Relani Branch, and countless other African Americans who struggled to open the doors of segregation. His death improved the lives of generations to come, and because of his sacrifices, he should be remembered as a true martyr of the civil rights cause.